for community we've already got going for the last maybe 10 years or more. It's an amazing institution. I'm finding even more. Even when I go to interfaith meetings, they are telling me, this is a Christian priest telling me, Riaz, you have the Quran. It's amazing. There's so much clarity in there, because in all our Bible and the Torahs and all the holy books we have, they don't have that at all. They're all over the place. So they are actually envious of us as a community, as a religion. They're envious of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So from this standpoint, every single one of us is a volunteer in the way of Allah, in the way of the Imam, in the way of whatever is good that has been presented to us through our books and our religion. So saying Hujjat helping hands, I'll come to that later, but I'd like to expound on the actual case of volunteering for the community. It doesn't stop at a small community. If you have the jazba, if you have the inclination to help, you'll be helping your neighbors, you'll be helping any elderly in your street. As the hadith goes, 40 houses to the right, 40 houses to the left. If anybody is in trouble, it's your fault. It's because you didn't keep talking to them. Now here is the link for talking, because in this day of internet, I hear more about what's happening in India or Africa than I do about what's happening in my neighborhood. Now here's where the seniors can actually come in on their own, because the minute you make friends with people, you encourage them, you show them your religion, you show them your values of how to live a life as a Muslim. Believe me, it makes such a lot of difference. It makes people trust you. And I'm reminded by another hadith that says that, how do you find a Muslim in any little new village or town or country that you go in? You simply ask people, who do you think is the most trustworthy, is the most admirable character in your town? And if that person doesn't lead you to a Muslim, that means there is no Muslim there. It's because people like you and me need to be known with those qualities of honesty and amanat, like the Prophet had himself. So against the background of this, we have, for the last maybe 5 years, started this Hujjat Helping Hands. Of course, everybody that we take on as a volunteer just needs to clear DBS. That's done mostly online. As we know, everything is online these days, isn't it? So once you are registered as a Hujjat Helping Hands helper, you go on a list of, maybe we have 40 people in our list. Anybody who needs a lift somewhere, anybody who needs any extra help to get to Stanmore so that we can have more people here, so that we can spread our friendship, we spread our camaraderie, we spread our community. I know there isn't a lot that you can do in terms of helping out in other ways, but all of us have got qualities. All of us have got plus points, all of us have got negative points. As we are getting more and more involved with mental health issues, I'm finding, and there's this research to say that 75% of us will be affected by mental health issues at some point in their life. The problem is it's not easily identifiable. It's only when you talk to people that you realize, okay, somebody has got a concern about something small, which I think might be a very small thing. A small thing like even putting the shoes in the right place, or somebody has a habit of twitching a little bit and you think, okay, there's something wrong with him. Somebody who can't stand straight because he's, and you notice the head's dropping and you think, okay, there's something wrong there. It's how you explain things to the person. It's how you approach the subject that makes the difference. Because change doesn't come easily. It takes time. And it sometimes needs to have something difficult happening to a person to make you realize how life is so vulnerable and it's so easy for you to make it better for yourself. Not for yourself, also for others. There is one thing I found in the Hujjat Helping Hands is that we already had a lot of volunteers doing their own work. Especially, I must say this, the ladies have got much better groups organized than the gents side. They are actually looking after the seniors who are living on their own. The only thing is, when people do these voluntary things, it's like neki kar darya mein dal. It's because they don't like to beat their own drums and say, I'm doing this for my neighbor, I'm doing this for this old lady. And because I'm involved, I found out at least 6 different ladies that I've spoken to. It's only because I've gone and asked them that, are you doing something for this old lady who's living on her own? And I found out they're actually doing it without anybody knowing. And that's what brings me out to sit here and say, we're all doing it. Even if we're having a kind word with anybody else, it could be somebody sitting next to you. You're having a kind word with that person. You're a hujjat helper. You're helping out other people who are not at the same level as you in the recognition of what you're talking about. It could be sharing a ride together, going to Kabristan together. It's not family meals anymore. We understand that. COVID has changed a lot. And that's my next subject is, before COVID, we were quite busy. We were literally hospital appointment. Somebody realizes I've got a hospital appointment in 2 days' time, and I haven't organized. I'm not very good with internet, so I can't really go into Uber. That reminds me, only 2 weeks ago, I met an elderly person here who was waiting for a lift, and he said to me, no, I know how to do Uber. And I was so happy to hear that. This person, I didn't think he had the capability or the capacity to order himself an Uber. And yet, he says to me, no, I can do it myself. I don't need help. That is so positive. Wherever he's got that from, he's got it from people that he's talking to. Somebody, maybe he's a niece, nephew, son, whatever. And maybe 2 years ago, maybe even last week, I was wondering how these people can afford, because he's okay to afford it, but it's just having that confidence to go online and do that. Whoever has assisted him, it's amazing. That is progress. We need to do more of that, speak to each other more about not just using technology, also health matters. As I said, we are losing that contact between each other, where we're looking, and it's amazing every single day. All of us are doing is I'm looking at the WhatsApps and saying, what's happening in Mombasa, what's happening in Iraq, what's happening in Gaza, for example. So we're talking more about those things and not talking enough about each other and what we have around us. Believe me, what I have seen out there, we have a treasure in this place in itself. We have a treasure in the seniors. People like him are dedicated. They are giving their time to organize things like this. That is where our strength is. My next subject. Any of you have any extra time on your hands, please just call the office, call me, call Sultan Bhai, because we need to set up one more thing that I've seen lacking in the gent side is hospital visits. There are at least 3 seniors I know of who are, 2 of them are in hospital, 1 is in a senior's home that we will talk about later. And then if somebody can take up the mantle and say, okay, let's do this. Tuesdays, I've been here when they do the sports here. I don't know what they call it, Mumtaz uncle. Right? I've seen 60 people playing sports and milling together and talking and creating that bond which is missing. I am highly envious of this man. He's done it. He's done a lot, just like Sultan uncle here. Mumtaz uncle has done a lot on Tuesday. I'm only thinking that we've got 1 day left, Thursday, which is, the night is holy. But during the day, Thursday, maybe we can organize something like these hospital visits, like this getting together. It doesn't have to be at the mosque. You can all line up on a Wednesday and say, we've got this list of people that we'd like to go and see, because they're getting a bit lonely. And also the food that's given there is not exactly according to our liking. So it'll be nice if we can set up something And it doesn't have to be. I'm coming on to Hujjat Helping Hands now to tell you what exactly we're doing. But the feeling is I'd like to make sure that you all recognize the positivity comes from talking to each other. The positivity comes from little things like helping somebody get their shoes out, or helping somebody with the hot water, with the cold water, drying themselves. These, and pushing a wheelchair. 10 years ago, I used to bring my dad here on a Wednesday, and I miss that because I used to bring him in a wheelchair. I was probably one of the youngest in those days. I joined at the age of 50 the seniors because my dad was with me. And all of us are going to get there one day. So the more we do, the more we get back. It's a barakah. It's, I think, what do they call it in English? They call it not vibes. They call it, no, there's another word where you said the return will be good, if you know what I mean. The kudos. Anyway, so now coming to Helping Hands. The Hujjat Helping Hands, as I said, we slowed down in COVID, very drastically slowed down. What I'd like to tell you all, people gathered here, and people that you speak to, is that we'd like to see more involvement. If any of you know of anybody who actually needs help with anything, and again, it's amazing, we have a welfare section that looks after people who might have financial difficulty. I will not be able to name any names, but there have been so many people that I have been involved with through my other volunteers. I'll just take the names of my group in the Hujjat Helping Hands core team. I've got Dr. Sadiq Mirali with me, Mahbub Glamsen with me in the gents section, and in the ladies, Masuma Bayalu, Sakina Mirali, Sukaina Datu, and Tabassum Sheikh. In the gents, the ration is supplied to 22 different families every single month. And in the hot food section, there are 18 deliveries going out. 18 families are looked after with hot food. Now, these could be vulnerable people. They could be elderly who are not able to cook anymore. They could be elderly who were serving in Stanmore for years and years, and they're now finding it difficult to cook for themselves. All that is going on, and that is the main effort that Hujjat Helping Hands is putting in. At the same time, we are conversant, we are talking to people in the welfare department, which is the financial assistance department. So recently there was an effort by the Jamaat to say that anybody who has a problem with paying their electricity and gas bills, they were getting a grant of £200. That wasn't picked up by as many people, so we were advertising that to the people who we are supplying as vulnerable, and we had a lot of take-up there as well. I can give you one example of a vulnerable person who came back from hospital, and he's got sciatica, a very bad case of sciatica where he couldn't get out of the house, living alone, a vulnerable person. And I can tell you that one of our volunteers done the shopping for him within 3 hours. We just put out this thing and say, can somebody help? He's in this street. So because we've got these 40 volunteers set up in different places, the one that's nearest can say, okay, I can get him bread and stuff. So we just exchange phone numbers. And the effect that has on a vulnerable person, I've had texts and messages to say, I feel like I have a family here, because these people are on their own. You know, most of them don't have children, or some of them don't have children. And they're the ones who feel like when Hujjat does something for them, they feel so indebted. They feel like they are part of this community. And that belonging is a very big factor. The belonging to an organization, to a community that cares for you, that is there when you need them, is immeasurable. There is nothing in this life as satisfying as getting from somebody, a stranger, saying, you've done something that I don't miss my family anymore because you are there. Believe me, any of you feel like becoming part of this, just step forward, let the team know, let Dr. Sadiq know, just call the welfare, call the Jamaat office and say, I'd like to become more involved in volunteering. Again, do remember that all our records are totally confidential. So you will never hear a name from me about any person that has been assisted. Same goes for the financial. So if you're thinking that somebody in the community that you know of might be facing a problem, please don't hesitate. Just step up and just call the Jamaat office and say, this is the name of the person, this is the address of the person. I am concerned about their welfare. Now, it could be that your one single phone call might put them in touch with other services that we offer in Hujjat. In case you don't know, it's all on the website. Obviously, you open the Hujjat app and it's all there further down. We have counseling, we have marriage counseling, we have conflict resolution units, and family advice. Obviously, we don't offer things like legal services. That's a difficult minefield to go into. But we have people like me who I might have done a few applications for LPA. That's another favorite subject that we can always talk about, is the lasting power of attorney for people that might lose the capability to make decisions, whether it's financial or health. Just a quick word. For example, in the health section, you might sign off to say that I would like not to have any blood transfusions. This is just an example of what you can gain, especially for people who don't have immediate family in the country. So you could say that you don't want any blood transfusions, and also you can say that you don't want to be resuscitated, which is the DNR. Most of us know about this. But if it's not signed or done, then it leaves a loose end. And I've heard of a lot of cases where siblings from outside the country will actually object and say, why didn't you consult me? Or what authority do you have to make decisions on behalf of our parents? So please spread the word. LPA is very important. Doesn't matter if you're on your own. Doesn't matter if you're married or not. Please look into it. LPA. And of course, the will is even bigger an issue. It's even bigger an item for all of us to realize that we must have that done and recorded and signed. Basically, I'm only here to ask for volunteers to see whether we can expand our group of Hujjat helpers. As I said, all of us are helping in one way or another. If you have got extra time, step up, please, because we need people. There's only 4 of us in the gents section, and there's like 5 in the ladies. And we need to balance the numbers a little bit. Talib Bhai Sheikh is here also. He's in my team and the core helpers. He's doing an amazing job. 2 years ago, he wasn't doing anything for the helping hands. And now he's taken over an entire section. That's left me time to concentrate on things that we have to get done because of regulations. The best part of any talk, this wasn't a speech, it's just a talk, a chat. The best part is question and answers. If anybody has anything at all, even to comment, please feel free. I've got plenty of time. So because of these interest rates going up, we've already had a couple of cases which have been passed on to the welfare section. The simple answer is they can be helped. Yes. The simple answer is they can be helped. Obviously, the welfare section goes through the criteria that they have. And recently, there was a case where the person is, because of the advice given, that mortgage problem is only going to happen, is only there until November this year. So the welfare section assisted that person with a financial top-up between now and November. So yes, the answer is, if somebody is, obviously, you know, they have their own criteria. We have accountants in that section that will look into your status and say, here's where you might be able to save money, here's where you might be able to get a better deal. And yes, that can be done. Yes, thank you so much. So if you know of anybody, especially the youngsters. And here's a good thing. The youngsters I've found that are volunteering now in Hujjat, they're in a class of their own. It's amazing what they bring. Because people like me and, most of us have been volunteering and helping the community for years. So we have a certain mindset, and we're saying, okay, we must save money on everything. You see, the new youngsters are not like that. They're professionals. They know the value of investing in your own community. So they'll say, no, throw this away, get the new one in. And that new one then brings immediate, you can see where we're sitting now. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, you look at this place and you think, you're a valuable person to belong to a place like this. You feel it. You feel like there's a lot of effort gone into this place. And alhamdulillah, we are at that stage now where we're starting to reap benefits, and maybe reap benefits for a long time to come. So yours, in answer to your question, yes, there is things that Jamaat can do. All you do is email welfare@hujjat.org. I have a very good answer to that, and we get this in the car park a lot. Say, you guys are standing out there in the cold and guiding everybody. So when I get time, I will tell you exactly, and I've got a minute now. All of us that are doing this are actually what we call in Gujarati swarthi. Okay? Yeah, swarthi la manas che. Kem? Alokane khabar che, alokane reward upar che. So whatever we are doing, we're doing for the sake of God, for the sake of His pleasure. So in the end, it's me. I want to gain pleasure of God. And that's why I'm selfish. And I've seen a very good example of that in the haram of Imam Raza, where there were those people who push the wheelchairs. So there's an old person and a young person, both running towards where my mother was in a wheelchair to take her through the ladies section. And they actually began fighting amongst themselves. I was here first. No, I'll take this lady. And when you reach the other end, you try to give them some money. They say, Salawat. Salawat bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Where do you find that? Where do you find that? Right? So that person, me, anybody who is volunteering their time are not doing this for gaining status, for gaining financial gain, for anything other than just like this. And this is the difference between the Ahl Sunnah and us, is that we raise our hands much easier because we do it in every time we pray our namaz. And they don't. So I was with a friend of mine, and he said to me, when I'm on my second rakat, and I raised my hands for kunut, immediately he said, isn't that something that the Rasul used to do? Raise his hands to the sky. Every single day we raise our hands to the sky. And what do we ask for? For the pleasure of Allah, nothing else. So this is all part of that. But thank you for pointing it out. I have a lot of people with me, behind me, who are volunteers. I'll pass the message on. Thank you so much. Please. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. It's a valuable suggestion. It's something that we've already discussed. And there were times when I've met people outside the seniors and they didn't know that we had Jamaat Namaz on a Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And there was always some food to take away, am I right? So you're supposed to be sitting here to eat, obviously. But there are always some tabarruk. It's actually a meal every time. I don't know the insides of who was cooking it, but it's an amazing idea. The only thing is you've got to balance that against people not coming to the center. You know what I mean? Because if I'm sort of taking a takeaway, yes, I'm there for prayers. Yes, I'm taking my own food. But then you have the idea, oh, it's a Thursday afternoon. I don't have to come for Thursday Majlis because I've been there in the afternoon. And then the journey then doubles. You say, okay, you have to go in a Thursday afternoon as well as a Thursday evening. But this has been suggested before. It's an amazing suggestion. Obviously, in COVID, it was very important, and we did quite a lot. Jamaat did a lot of these tiffins, and literally, I remember one time we had a queue in the rugby ground, remember? Right? So there were like, I think it was 2,000 meals were prepared. Well, obviously, it's because of COVID. So when the time comes, something like that, it's amazing how fast we react. And your suggestion, again, it rings a bell because it's happened in more than one occasion where people have been talking about it. Yes, the seniors have been speaking to the Jamaat, and I can see that happening. I can see that happening, inshallah, not long now, maybe a couple of months, and we're all done here, downstairs, upstairs, new kitchen and everything. So, inshallah, that's something definitely to look out for. Thank you so much for the session. I've noted it down. Thank you. Anything you want to say? Send away. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. समझेगा MashaAllah. Yeah, Amazon is banned now, yeah? Absolutely. Yeah, keep them active, yes. Mm. Very true, and we've already actioned that. The people who are getting ration are different to the people who are getting hot food. So we assess them according to their needs. And I'll tell you a good anecdote to this. It's at the end. So with the people getting ration is usually some people who are younger who are cooking for themselves, and they have children. If you remember when we all first came to this country, it was very difficult. The first few years was difficult, and they all had little children. So I visited these people who have come maybe 5 or 7 years ago. Their husbands are in menial jobs, like driving a cab or something which is unskilled. And yes, they are getting welfare in the sense of they have a council flat, but they have 5 or 6 little children who are growing up. And that's the time when you need to be there for them. It's not when they're okay, after they've been here 20, 30 years, everybody's okay, they're fine, because they have a skill and they've moved on, and the children have grown up. With these little children, then you feel like if at this time the Jamaat is able to support them through these growing years, the children will remember the Jamaat forever, because this is the time when their parents needed that assistance, whether it's financial, whether it's ration, or whether it's cooked food. So the cooked food mostly goes to elderly people whose hands are shaking, who are difficult to do any cooking. And with the daily suggestion of every day, yes, the caterers supplying are not every day. They supply you with 2 or 3 days worth of food. And then as you run out, I'm again talking about the vulnerable people who can't even go near a cooker. those people need to be given hot food. Yes, they can use a microwave, but they can't use a cooker. So we supply them with hot food every 2 or 3 days. It depends upon if the person lives a little bit far away, then you would be giving him 7 days of cooked food to put in the freezer and then use the microwave. There is at least one person who is like that. If you're given hot food, it doesn't mean, oh yeah, of course, with the variations, it's the caterer's job to give them something different. So you won't get like four cartons of dal chawal. So you'll have different meal. And that's, of course, up to the caterer. So if he's supplying 20 different people, they'll all get ghost no sag today and dal tomorrow. But they will be given 2 or 3 containers separately. It's up to them which one they open on that day. So that's only for people who are not able to cook. Mostly, yes, ration is more, is supplied more than the hot food. The ration, because when you supply ration, you're supplying the whole family. It's mostly maybe 5 people in the family. When you're supplying hot food, it's usually 1 or 2 people living on their own, especially the elderly. There are some other vulnerable people who obviously have disabilities. The good thing that happened was an elderly person living with his child, maybe it's a son or a daughter, and when we said that on Sunday we are having this food where you come and pick up the food, or we can supply you, because it was a special occasion, it was a kushali or one of our big events, where we said we will supply food to your house. And having said that, the Al-Hadi youth did an amazing, tremendous job during COVID. At one time, they were supplying 1,000 meals a day in my Ramadan. Amazing. And that's why I like these youth getting involved, because they can do things we cannot in our age group. So this person was living with his family. And on a Sunday, he asked for 6 portions. I think it was khichro. That's the favorite one for all of us, right? And it transpired, the person who delivered the khichro knows the person a little, got to know him. And he said, why is it that you're not asking for any food during the week? Because we could supply you something, you know, during the week. He says, no, I live with my son and my daughter-in-law. And my daughter-in-law cooks for me 6 days a week. And if I get 6 portions of khichro on a Sunday, I feel like I'm supplying my family. I'm paying them back for the beautiful way that they're looking after me. So you see, that's where you see the need is so variable. And we don't even know about it. So that old person, elderly person, is able to demonstrate that he's got a community behind him. He's got people who will supply 6 portions of khichro on a particular Sunday. It's niyaz. So he can feed the whole of the family who are usually looking after him. So when you hear these stories, you get encouraged and you think, yes, this is definitely worth doing, because this is something that you're doing only for the pleasure of Allah. Thank you so much. That was a good suggestion. I'm afraid I'm not an accountant. But yeah, I have an answer for that. Yes. Absolutely, yes, yes. And we've had appeals before, even during Ramadan or before Ramadan, when we were setting something up. It's very simple. There is on the Jamaat's website a click to donate, and you can click down if there is anything to do with welfare or Hujjat Helping Hands. It'll be something similar to that, and you can donate online there. If any of you, please feel free anytime you want to donate, and you can specify the funds should go to Hujjat Helping Hands, and they will be used in this fashion. None of our volunteers get paid for anything that they do. So all the money that you donate goes straight into welfare. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 I wonder if, you see, when they pay in lieu, that is a religious edict. So where the money goes, yeah. Mm. So I'm putting a note down. You see, we have Hujjat Helping Hands. Literally, we have our invoices paid directly through the Jamaat office, and I don't go beyond that to see where they're coming from as such. But it's an idea. I can just put a suggestion forward. Um, Simply put, I've never had a case where anything has been refused from Hujjat Helping Hands. Whatever we're doing, we've never had our hands restricted. So if the core team of Hujjat Hands decides that this person needs something extra, we've had students who have come from India who are penniless, who are studying in a university, and we're supplying ration to them directly through either it's ASDA or local shops or whatever. So every single case is on its own merits. But as I said, if there is, yeah, listen, donations are always gratefully accepted because it's your chance to do something in the way of Allah. And that is never discouraged. Well, this is it. This is our community we're talking about. Yeah. So with the Russian, we've not been given a limit, except every month, every family has a limit, yes, of how much assistance in Russian they're provided. But we can add more people to it. In fact, we've even had one of these vulnerable families come back and say, I don't need Russian anymore because that person had inherited some money. And he said, Alhamdulillah, I'm okay. So we are not supplying him anymore. Again, this is such a beautiful thing to hear. This shows the true effort, the true Mu'mineen character. And it's amazing. Where I am sitting, I wish all of you were able to sit where I am. It's such a beautiful place where you see such good things happening around you. And as I said, you don't even know about it. You find out later on that for the last 4 years, this old person in an elderly home has been visited by somebody. Obviously, it's the ladies more. And they've been looked after for their marchas and their atanos and their kichras and stuff. So it's an amazing thing. And I'd like any of you that have the time, please come up, step up, and become part of it. With this finance, I'm not so sure, because as I said, it's beyond me, but I will send a message to say whatever you suggested, if it's possible to be done. I'll make a note of that. Fidya money? Well, that's why I'm reluctant to answer that question, because I can't. I'm not in a position. Yeah, so I will pass the message on, and if there's something they can make out of it, all the better. Of course. Of course, of course. Yes, I've heard. Oh, just to add, in the ladies section, they do have a good network, and especially when our elderly need assistance in the house, and we find maybe the caregivers either from Somalia or Bangladesh, and you find that they are easier to employ. So they have circles that they send messages to each other. They have their WhatsApp groups. And if somebody requires somebody to assist in the house, that goes to their network. So if there's anything like that, honestly, just either call or email the office and say, this is my requirement. It'll be passed down from Dr. Sadiq down to the ladies section, and maybe they're able to source somebody for assisting in the house. We've only got 6 minutes left. If there is anything else, please. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, that's the way we are, because I am further down the food chain. So I don't get involved with anything to do with Jamaat decisions. I literally get asked to handle and manage a department in the same way as Turabai, as Talib Sheikh here has got this section that he's controlling. Masuma Bai Alu has got her own section that she's controlling. So we never get involved with direct fundraising. You're right, yes. And that's the best way to be for volunteers who are providing the service, as opposed to overlooking the voluntary service. Thank you so much. But I will pass the message on there. Perhaps there might be something there they can utilize. Thank you. So the brief that I was given was, when we had COVID, we had some people who noticed our website, and they literally applied for it. And because we were at that time supplying maybe 50 different families, we didn't do a check on them, as long as it was a family. But very soon, within 2 or 3 deliveries, we found out that those people were claiming other than our community members. Until COVID was there, if it was a Muslim name, we carried on until COVID finished. Once COVID had finished, then I can say from my list that I remember now of the 22 families, there is no reason for me to suspect that anybody is claiming from outside the community. Definitely, yeah. And we keep to that. Very good point. During COVID, they did set up a fund. I can't remember what it was called now, but yes, we made use of that. During COVID, we were actually given money to buy the ration and to supply hot food to the people who were vulnerable, sitting at home. And because I organized all of it, I can tell you now that we were getting approximately £1,200 a month to supply people during COVID. So when the time comes and the things get really bad, yes, there is assistance out there. Council, you see now, it's if you put yourself in that position where you're vulnerable and you don't want everybody to know. Even if the council official comes up to your door, it's like the police knocking on your door and the neighbors notice, you see? So you don't want to tell anybody that you are hand to mouth and you can't feed your children, and you don't want to go to the council and say that. It takes a lot of guts, because you'll be sitting there in a queue. I see your point. There is possibly links, but whenever you're involved with anything to do with bureaucracy, you know that the red tape extends beyond your limits. So they will be asking you so many questions and proofs. You put effort. You know, these days there are people who consult, and they guide you in applying for a grant or anything to do with the council, you know. So there is a specialist item. It's very difficult to get through. but it's possible. It's something that you might. So it's possible. I finished anyway. So it's possible that there is a grant available for such things. Yeah, I can make a note of that. I have been keeping an eye on grants, and yes, I've been involved in a couple of applications which were rejected. So I am now disheartened because I personally don't have enough knowledge about applying for grants, where one was successful because I had assistance from the treasurer of the Jamaat at the time, and the COVID assistance one. He's done the application and it was successful. But I have been twice applied and I didn't get through. Of course, the criteria is different. But when the time comes, if the bad times roll on again, I can see myself applying for the same grant again, and inshallah we'll get it. So it's all positive, it's all good, it's going in the right direction. We just need more people to get in touch with each other and say, let's do things together. Especially with visiting the sick, it's only the little loose end that we might touch on next time we are here together. Is that okay?
Got a couple of minutes. Somebody else wants
Yeah.
to ask, yeah?
Donated funds for, yeah, I'm just making a note. I was hoping to avoid that question because it's still under negotiation. Yeah, I have spoken to the Jamaat about this because the last time Al-Hadi Youth was applying, and that's because of COVID. You see, the downside is that if you're supplying food to every elderly out there in their houses, then there's less inclination for them to come to the mosque at night. So we need to balance that, because I think 15 days later we're going to have iftars here. So again, is it only for 15 days? And then you try to look after all the equations, and it's difficult because things change as well. So there is no plan at this moment in time to supply all the seniors in their houses with cooked hot food. It's not COVID, so I don't think we're worried about that anymore. I remember in COVID it was difficult. All of us were out there literally filling up last-minute orders. Somebody who got missed out, somebody's order was late. Honestly, it was a great effort. Because I've seen the figures, it was an amazing effort by the youngsters of our community. I know the food was coming from a restaurant. It's not the same as home-cooked food. But under the circumstances, I think they carried the flag well. And I can see our future with such dedication from the youngsters being much better than what we were inherited in our days. Yeah. I understand. If it comes to that, when the time comes, I'm hoping you will be part of the organization so that you can guide as well. We welcome anybody who's got time to help. And you did a lot as well, I remember, in the first early time. Thank you so much. I've still got people who are remembering you to say that, yeah, you did a good job. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much. Hassan.
Riyaz Bhai, thank you so much. I think we've learned quite a lot how much Helping Hand can do for us.
All of us are doing it.
And they need volunteers. I'm too old now to volunteer.
No, you're not. You can come in any time.
But
Hassan.
inshallah, there'll be some more people to volunteer. Thank you very much indeed, Riyaz. Thank you. I'm request now Sadiq Bhai to recite Surah Yasin for us, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنزل آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع ذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاء المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاءتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت من ربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومهم من بعد من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا مؤضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما أملت أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نريكم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها مؤردين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواج في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أحد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضلنا منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا صراطا فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لتمسخناهم على مكانة فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نؤمره ننقصه في الخلق أفلا يأكلون وما علمناه شعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما أملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وظللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلية لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند مؤضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم كل أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثواب الفاتحة.
It's a car registration WU57 VOL. Can you please move it, please? It's blocking. Thank you. Please recite Surah Fatiha for Marhumin of Ghulam Sen Kanji family, Marhumin of Haji Jafar Danji family, Marhuma Nargis Bai Pradhan, Marhumin of Hasnain Hash Kasam family, Marhumin of Poptani family, Marhumin of Jairaj family, Marhumin of Rashid family, and all our Marhumin. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Makbul Bhai, can you do ziyarat for us, please? Thank you.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيد النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر بن النبيين، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم، السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي التقي الجواد، السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي النقي، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي الزكي العسكري، السلام عليك يا حجة الله بن الحسن يا صاحب رياست الزمان، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، عجل الله فرجه وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وزهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.